Good morning and welcome to our MRTA educational series conversation today. We're going to be talking about long-term care 201, the rest of the story. My name is John Green and I'll serve as your host today. We have several folks that are joining us today as panelists and co-hosts, but just a couple of quick housekeeping details before we jump on off into our conversation. And while other folks join us as well, all participants are in a listen-only mode. And what that means is if you have a question you'd like to ask, please drop that into the Q&A feature on the Zoom, and we can stop and address your question if necessary. Or if it's something specific to you, we do record each one of these questions. We can respond back to you individually, take care of all those things for you. We do record these webinars and we'll put them out on the MRTA website probably early next week or so, but it gives you an opportunity to go back and review it. If you miss something, you have to leave early for whatever reason. But more importantly, especially for this topic, it allows you to share this with your family members, because the conversation that we're going to have today impacts family members for multiple generations. So we want you to have that available to you as well. You'll also notice this QR code down here in the bottom right-hand corner. This is your opportunity to get more information. All you simply have to do is have your smartphone, and we'll show you how you can access that QR code to get more information sometime at the end of the presentation today. So grab a pen and paper. We're going to start today's webinar here in just a moment. I want you to write down a few things and take a few notes. Do a couple of quick introductions real quickly, then I'm going to turn it over to the MRTA crew to say what's going on with MRTA. We have today on our call is my co-host today is Lisa Wood. She is a AMBA representative in Jeff City, and she's been in the industry for about 25 years or so, working with members all across the country, all across the state of Missouri. So Lisa, we're glad that you're here today, and she's with us today for a very specific reason. She's had experience with the topic that we're talking about as well. We also have Kel Smalley, who is our leader for all of Missouri, located over in the Kansas City area. He'll be joining us for just a short time today. So let's go ahead and jump on into our conversation. Before we get to talk about what we're talking about, the topic at hand, I want to bring on Martha and Maria and let them share with us what's happening at MRTA. So Martha, you want to start, and then I'll let Maria kind of share some legislative issues?
Sure. We're ramping up again. We've been having Zoom meetings for community service, IPS and membership committees. We did that last week. We'll have the other legislative and the other committees coming up soon. We did our drawing for our raffle for the foundation, and that was a lot of fun. I actually went to the office in person to participate in that, and that was really enjoyable to do that. You can catch that on the MRTA Facebook page. There's a link there where you can watch that. The $5,000 winner was Jan Powers, which was exciting to us because Jan is a former MRTA president and just went off the MRTF board. So that was fun for all of us to actually know someone that won. It seems like usually it's someone that we've never heard of, but that's fine too. But it wasn't any of us, which was disappointing. So maybe next year. I've been visiting some local units that are close. I've been to Dade County, Laclede County, and Republic today. I was in Osceola with Maria last Friday for Region 6 meeting, headed to Region 7 for the meeting tomorrow in Vienna. It's been starting to really ramp up, and it's so much fun to go to these local meetings and these region meetings and see what's happening. I do want to say that Arleta and Phil Godwin have offered to pay for 100 free memberships again this year. So that is anyone who is a new member to MRTA. If you let Paige Holtmeyer know at the office and give them information, she will get them signed up for a year, and they won't have to pay anything until we pass 100 new members from them. And then that's it. That's all they're paying for. But that is a wonderful opportunity. If you know anybody that's a new retiree or planning to retire, they get their first year free. And it's an excellent way to get them acquainted with MRTA and all the wonderful things that we do. I know Maria is going to talk about, I hope, a little bit our annual meeting. We've been working hard trying to find a place for that, which is harder than you might think. Finding a place that can accommodate us, that we can afford, don't always match up. So I think she may have some news on that, I hope. And I'm going to let her talk.
Thank you, Martha. Appreciate that. I'm most excited. You know, the raffle, I was fun to watch, but the fact that 24 teachers are going to be able to get some $500 grants from
Yes.
the foundation. So it's a great, great opportunity. So Maria, how are you this morning?
I am doing great, John. It's good to see everyone's smiley faces. So it always is good, even on Zoom, to see people. We were with Cal and Martha last week, and then on Friday, Lisa's going to join us into the region meeting on Friday. So it'll be great to visit with her. She was in our office yesterday, so I got to catch up. So great things are happening at MRTA. We're super excited. The legislative session is almost over. May 12th at 6 p.m. They are going home. So that's great for us. There's a couple of bills that we've done some call to actions on. So I'm going to touch base on a little bit of those. There is a bill that reestablishes the 2.55 benefit formula factor for teachers that have over 32 years of service. And I hear this often from our retirees. Well, why do I care? How does that impact us? We've already retired. And one of the things that bill does is it puts back funding into the retirement system. So it will save the system about $235 million in the next 20 years or so. That is huge for a retirement system such as ours. It puts back into the retirement about 21 to 23 million annually by keeping active teachers teaching a little bit longer. So for a retirement system the size of PSRSPers, anytime you can convince a retiree or an active teacher to stay working instead of retire, there is a huge savings for the retirement system. So we are very supportive of that. We did a call to action on that bill. There also, you'll see a call to action on House Bill 497, which deals with increase in minimum teacher salary. It also has our 2.55 formula factor on it, changes to critical shortage and working after retirement. The reason why we are so supportive of that is, one, we really believe our teachers are the heartbeat of our local communities. We want to make sure that we support them. And truthfully, we're facing a teacher shortage, which is why the impetus of 2.55 is coming back, as well as other provisions to try and get people to understand that they need to go into teaching, that it is an important profession. And part of it is also the education of our General Assembly as well. So that's huge, and that's important to us. Another bill that we sent out a call to action on is House Bill 253, the open enrollment bill. That allows school districts to essentially, the boundaries that students are restricted from are no longer would be lifted. So if you wanted to go to a school that, a great example was if you're living in Jefferson City and you wanted to go to Blair Oaks, you could definitely transfer to Blair Oaks if that school accepted students for the transfer. So we are extremely concerned about that bill and the impact it could have on our local communities and on our public schools. Right now, we have about 511 different school districts in the state of Missouri. We want to make sure that those school districts are thriving. The two things that you'll find in any local community, depending on the size of it, is a church and a school. We want to make sure that we protect those school districts because we do know they matter to it. Right now, we have around 2,300 bills were introduced. We are tracking about 260 of those, and there are about 285 education bills that are out there. So education is a hot topic. We went through our strategic plan. We are revamping and wanting to make sure that what we're doing is making a difference, not only on our pension system, but also for our active teachers and for our school districts, and ultimately for the over 900,000 kids that go through our schools. We want to make sure that's our why for existing. Martha touched briefly about the annual meeting. We will be assigning papers probably as soon as I get off of this call. I'll be going through the contract with a fine-tooth comb, but we believe we're going to be at the Lodge of the Four Seasons. That would be at the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, for those of you that are interested. John, I know that you your son goes to school in Columbia. That's about an hour and a half from Columbia. So if you're up there to visit, we'd love to see your smiling face at the annual meeting. We're we're hoping for record attendance. As Martha said, we have gotten so big that it is hard to find a hotel in the vicinity that will really accommodate the size and the group that we bring in. So that's a great problem to have, but it also is a logistical problem to have. So we're working through all of that. We have our golf tournament that is going to be June 22nd at Eagle Knoll. That's in central Missouri. We are urging all active teachers and retired teachers that like golf to play. Kel said he's going to play, and he said he's been working on his game and that his drive is farther than it has ever been. So we are super excited to see him out on the course and playing with some of our superintendents. And that is essentially what we're working on right now. There's always something going on. So it keeps us hopping and on our toes. But May 12th is when session adjourns. We should have a huge newsletter that will be our wrap up. So stay tuned for that afterwards.
Great. Thank you, Maria. With the 3 weeks to go, basically, or less than 3 weeks to go, is there anything that members need to be specifically watching out for? Is it a flurry of last minute bills, or does something pop up that concerns you that you can reach out to the members pretty quickly?
Do you know there are a ton of bills that are out there? As I said, there's over 280 education bills that really impact us. Any money that goes away from our public schools harms our public schools and ultimately harms our pension system. So right now we're looking at what they do in the Senate. There's a couple of bills that have moved over there, and we're extremely concerned about that. The budget bill is up right now, and they're in conference on the education budget. That should happen and be finalized by May 5th at 6. So they only have a week left of work. John, this time of year, we see the omnibus bills and they scare us. And we like to call them Christmas trees because anyone that has a wish puts it out there and it gets tacked on. We are really hopeful that we can stay ahead of the curve. And I would urge everyone to sign up for Phone to Action. It's a great perk of being a member of MRTA. We send out a text message to all cell phone users that we have that essentially says if there's a problem and it's going to cost the pension system or our education system a lot of money, we're going to send a bill out. So, and tell you to reach out to your elected officials. I urge everyone to sign up. If you don't know how to sign up or you want to sign up, reach out to Morgan with our office. You can contact us. I'm sure John has the number, but it's 573-634-4300. We urge you to call her. She is able to sign you up immediately just with your cell phone number. So again, that's one of the perks of what we're trying to do here at MRTA, but good question.
Thank you, Maria. Keep up the good fight. Appreciate you joining us today to share this. Go knock out that the convention logistics, and look forward to having that this summer along with the golf tournament and stuff like that. So thank you.
John, are you going to come in for the golf tournament? Because I'd like to see you. We're up near Columbia.
Any reason to get up to Columbia, Missouri is a good reason for me. So I will do my best to see if my bosses can let me come up there. So thank you, Maria, for the invite.
Now listen, John, if you come up, just remember that it is competitive, and our teams they're going to give you a hard competition on it. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. I appreciate it, Maria. Thank you very much, Martha. Thank you for joining us as well. Real quickly, my name is John Green. I'm in charge of membership engagement at AMBA, Association of Member Benefits Advisors. I live a little bit north of Houston with my wife, who's a second grade elementary school teacher. My daughter is just wrapping up her student teaching this week and will graduate here in a couple of weeks. And then my middle son is a Mizzou graduate, and he got his master's degree from Mizzou, and I love going up to Columbia. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. I've spent the better part of my 30-year career in schools helping active educators understand what their retirement years are like. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. And Maria and Martha hit on this really strongly. This is why MRTA is here for you. You worked all of your career to be a part of an organization that is protecting your biggest asset, that's your pension. And Maria talked about this, about the bills that are out there that could impact your pension positively or negatively, how that's important, how benefits are paid out, things of that nature. With all of these bills that come up, there's always somebody looking to take away or add or do something that could impact active educators, which could impact retired educators or vice versa. That's what MRTA has done out there to help keep those things in check and the things that you've worked for. And then Martha put it so succinctly, MRTA is to help keep you connected. You used to go to schools and you stayed connected with your education community. Now it's time to stay connected with your retiree community. And the thing I love about MRTA, they stay connected back to the active educator community through the MRTF grants and through different programs and things like that. And then MRTA looks for ways to add value to your membership. And that's through exclusive discounts, benefits, and things like that. And some of those are brought to you by AMBA, Association of Member Benefits Advisors. Those benefits are designed to fill gaps that aren't covered by your state or your district benefits. They're portable if you ever leave the state for whatever reason. A lot of members sometimes will retire, move further to the south, move closer to grandkids, things like that. You can take them wherever you want to go. But especially with today's conversation, especially with teachers that retire, and sometimes they have to retire early to take care of a loved one, some of the benefits that you have through MRTA could prevent you from having to take time off from a second job, or prevent your maybe son or daughter from taking off time or retiring early to take care of you. So we're going to talk about some of those things today, some of the activities that you have. And in our goal today is to recap some of the basics of long-term care, show you what's currently out there in the extended long-term care environment, show some options that could be available to you out there, address some of the myths and concerns. I want Lisa to kind of share her story as well and help you to make the most of what your options are. But to help Lisa and Kel and I understand who's on the call today, I want to launch a quick poll. And this poll is basically to see what's your plan. So if you or somebody in your family needs some sort of extended care, I'm going to what? I'm going to use my long-term care insurance to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it out of my hard-earned savings. I'm going to ask a family member to take care of me. I'm going to try to get on Medicaid, or I don't know what my plan is. So if you'll just take a few moments and answer that question, we've got several folks that are jumping in here to do that. There's no wrong answer. It's just important to discuss this, and that's why MRTA hosts and sponsors these webinars, because it gives us a chance to talk about what could be out there. So we'll take just a few more seconds out there, because just about everyone has answered their question. If not, that's okay. Some of you are on your smartphone or on your tablet, and it may not work as well as being on your laptop out there. So, all right, last call, 3, 2, 1. We're going to end this poll. Let me share the results here. So we've got somebody says they've got a plan, a long-term care plan to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it out of my hard-earned savings. Or most of us on the call say, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And that's okay. That's why we have these conversations. We have these conversations because the great philosopher, Mike Tyson, says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And this is my punched in the mouth moment. This is a picture of my dad and I back in July of 2020. This was the last time that he remembered who I was. He had been in a nursing home for about 2 years, directly from the effects of dementia, from vascular dementia and a series of small strokes. And because my father had a plan, we were able to take that punch in the mouth much easier. And so I want to share my experiences through that. I want Lisa to share here in just a moment. So a lot of the conversation today that we have is because of what Lisa and I have been through or are going through right now. And we hope to help you have a plan yourself, because having a plan one way or the other can really help you withstand some of those punches that come at you. And we do this because many of you may have retired, and before you retired, the school district offered a plan, a long-term care plan. And we saw a significant increase in schools offering long-term care plans in a group type environment without any underwriting, all throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. And then all of a sudden, companies could no longer afford to offer those plans. So they started pulling out of the market. They stopped offering the plans. They started raising rates, increasing underwriting costs, things like that, and saw a significant decline in the number of people taking long-term care. But it didn't change some of the good news, bad news situations. So we kind of find ourselves now in a good news situation in that the advancements in diagnosis and treatment are catching up. And so we're able to catch things earlier, prevent things earlier, provide care earlier, and life expectancies are up. Even after COVID, life expectancies are coming back that way. And there are a variety of options in the way that care is provided. It used to, I think about my grandparents, when my grandfather needed to go into a nursing home, it was basically nursing home or stay at home. That was it. There were no options in between. He lived in a rural community in North Texas. And so there's so many more options that are out there now. The flip side of that is we are aging as a population. So therefore, there's a lot more need for care. And when there's more need, the demand goes up, so does the cost. At the same time, we have smaller care pools. Again, I mentioned my grandparents. Each one of my 4 grandparents were part of 7 to 12 kids. And they had a big care pool. If somebody was sick or somebody needed help, there was somebody in the family to do that. Now we have much smaller families. They're more spread out across the country, so that the care pool there is not as big. Companies started changing their language and their policies, restricting who could take care of it. At the same time, Medicare made significant changes because Medicare is not really a program for any type of care after an injury out there or after a long-term care chronic need. And therefore, premiums went up, costs went up. And then COVID hit. And COVID really impacted the way that nursing homes are able to provide care. One thing I found with my father, when his first nursing home that he was in, there were many providers and specialists that would come in and out and work in multiple nursing homes. Well, with COVID protocols, now they couldn't go to different nursing homes. So it drives up the cost again. So there's a lot of good news, bad news is. The good news is we can help you out with that. What has not changed throughout COVID, throughout anything, is that 70% of us, once we reach the age of 65, are going to need some form of extended care in our lifetime. Now, that could be simply from a fall and a broken hip or something of that nature for a period of 3 or 4 months, or maybe a knee replacement surgery for a time period. Or it could be like my father. He needed at least 2+ years of care up until the end of his life in a nursing home facility. So the vast majority of us, once we reach age 65, are going to need some form of extended care. Now in Missouri, when we covered this a couple of months ago, when we talked about this in long-term care 101, the costs are all across the board and they're going up. If you live in the major metropolitan areas in Kansas City and St. Louis and around those areas, the costs are up significantly over 2021. The new survey will come out next month and be published next month, so I'll update these numbers. I don't think they're going to change that dramatically. So you see the cost of a semi-private room in Kansas City is about $6,400 a month, about $5,600 a month in St. Louis. Jefferson City, a little bit less expensive for a home health aide or an assisted living facility, but the costs are going up for nursing homes. So again, depending on where you live, sometimes the mileage with gas prices, those type of things can make a difference for you as well. So that's kind of a set the stage of where things are in Missouri right now. And we covered in 101 kind of the historical components of a traditional long-term care policy, where we talked about what qualified you to receive a policy, what triggered the benefits, how the different things are taken care of in terms of how coverage is built in there. And really, we want to focus in on not necessarily the basics of a traditional long-term care policy in this conversation, but more about what I call the condiments, the extra things, where you get cared for, who cares for you, how to cover some of the out-of-pocket expenses that you may have out there, and things to look out for in some of the alternatives. This is an example of a policy that was sold in schools back in the late 90s and early 2000s. This is one that was sold in Texas, but they're pretty standard across the country. And I wanted to point this out to you because if you've got a plan, if you have a long-term care plan, yours may look very similar to this. This basically saying that you would receive in a nursing home home $300 a day. If you went to a alternative care facility, which could be such as a home that assisted living, something like that, you would get $300 a day. If you had someone come in your house, it would be $75 a day, but only up to $2,250. So it really doesn't have a lot of home care provision, but the max that you would get is $657,000 worth of coverage. So this is a pretty good plan that someone would have bought, but it doesn't have really any at-home benefits. And most people want to be taken care of at home. And it has a 90-day qualification period, which means that you have to be being taken care of for 90 days before the policy kicks in. So like I said, there's some different provisions, but it's pretty standard out there. It's a pretty common plan that was offered, but it's no longer offered in most schools anymore. So this is where we find a lot of members find themselves. They start to find that rates are going up on pre-existing policies. Sometimes those carriers are coming back and saying, hey, we'll agree to level your premium out, but we're going to reduce your coverage. Well, that may have been what you wanted whenever you took out the policy. So you're kind of in a financial conundrum at that point. Sometimes these longer elimination periods when you were younger said, oh, 90 days or 180 days whenever before my coverage kicks in, that's no big deal. But now you're looking at could be $30,000, $40,000 before the policy starts to cover you. Do you want to pull that money out of what you have in your savings? Sometimes the coverage doesn't match what your current costs are or what maybe the future costs will be. And then where we see a lot of these policies, they were very restrictive on the home care front. And we'll explain that in a moment because people want to get cared for in the manner they want to be cared for, where they want to be cared for. So if you're considering long-term care and thinking about where you need your coverage, what's most important here, and this is where Lisa can give some experience out here with her background in this. These are kind of the national numbers that the average time that someone spends, and I want you to grab a pen and write some of these numbers down, 28 months in an assisted living facility. Now, an assisted living facility is kind of that halfway point between a nursing home and your home to where you can be cared for if you need it, but you can participate in the activities, things like that, but you still have some independence in how you're taken care of. But close to 60%, well over half, will eventually move into a skilled nursing facility. That's the kind of facility my father was in, where there's 24/7 around the clock care by specialists, physical therapists, people who provide cleaning, toileting, bathing, activities of daily living help for you in that regards. Now, men will spend an average of 8 months or so in a nursing facility, where women will spend a little over 2.5 years. So that can vary. So it really averages out to about 2.2 years, the average amount of time that somebody stays in a nursing home. However, we've seen with the rise of Alzheimer's, the average stay for an Alzheimer's patient is 9 years. And I met many people in my father's first facility that had been there 5, 6, 7 years because of Alzheimer's, totally healthy otherwise, but they needed care because of Alzheimer's. So if you've got a history of Alzheimer's in your family, you may want to consider some type of longer care plan opportunity out there. But the one number that jumped off the page to me is 47% of people who go to a nursing home stay less than 100 days. And that is not because they pass away in that 100 days. So write down 100 because I'm going to come back and touch on that number. It's so important that you understand this because that 100 days does have a major impact on us financially. So there are other options out there. And I want to walk through these other options that can help you, I guess, in a maybe less expensive way, give you greater peace of mind on who takes care of you, how you're taken care of, where you're taken care of, so that you're not spending money out of your pocket. And then I'm going to have Lisa come in and give a little bit of a testimony on her experience as well. So let's talk about this daily benefit amount or this length of coverage. As I showed you in that initial policy that many, many retired educators took out whenever they were actively working, you have a daily benefit amount or a pool of money that says this money is going to last a certain period of time or until you exhaust your money. There are MRTA endorsed options that give you the opportunity to have up to $1,200 of benefit per week that are paid to you regardless of any other coverage, regardless of any Medicare, anything like that. And they can be as small as 13 weeks or go up to a year. So if you have other plans in place that maybe have a larger waiting period or something like that, you can use this to supplement. Or in the case of my brother and I, we took out a plan for my mother that gives us 1 year to make sure she's taken care of before we have to do something with the house or her other financial, to kind of get our house in order before she's taken care of there. The thing I like about some of these plans is they have recurring benefits. subject to a lifetime maximum. But say you fall and break a hip and you have to have care for 3 months. After a certain period of time, your benefits restore and you then have your full coverage again. So it gives you the opportunity. It's not a once and done use on your policy. So there are some options out there that can take care of your biggest expense. Now, some of us ask, well, what about my elimination period? And the elimination period is kind of like your homeowner's deductible when a hailstorm rolls through Missouri, where you have to pay the first 1% or $500 or $1,000 on your homeowner's insurance policy before the coverage kicks in. The elimination period takes care of that for you. The elimination period is the same thing that says you have to pay for your care the first 90 days, the first 180 days. That money is always the hardest to find. How do I find that? Do I liquidate an asset that the family has, like some land? Do I tap a money market account? What if I don't want to sell any type of investments that are down, that type of thing? There are plans that are available to you that can start day one with a 0 waiting period. Others have a 20-day or 100-day waiting period, that type of thing. Shorter period of time that allow you to cover that elimination period, that allow you to take care of those issues right up front, and you don't have to worry about those things. Because as I mentioned, the first dollar is the hardest. Whenever my father had to finally go into a nursing home, we were blessed because his plan had ways to pay for his care up until he had to go to a nursing home, and then it paid 100%. So there are some neat ways that we can handle that, and that Lisa and her group and Kel and his team can follow to prevent you from having the most money out of your pocket there. So we can take care of the elimination period. And this is the biggie. Most people don't want to go into a nursing home. Whenever my father had a series of small strokes to where his dementia kind of took over and he could still do everything for himself, but he was a risk to himself of getting up in the middle of the night and falling, or getting up in the middle of the night and becoming an electrician all of a sudden, which he was not trained into being an electrician, but my stepmother would find him doing things in the house that could hurt himself. We did not want to move him to a nursing home. We wanted to keep him at home. So the plan that we had allowed him to stay at home and someone to come in and just sit up at the middle of the night in case he was a flight risk. So you've got the ability to select plans that take care of you where you want to be taken care of. You can have a lump sum that just pays you 100% of the plan, and you can decide, do I want to have somebody that's a licensed nurse come in and take care of me, or someone who from like visiting angels type of thing, or somebody that goes through a quick certification process that can just stay up a non-skilled service that way. Some of these plans provide extra cash if my dad had fallen and had to go to the hospital or for emergency room, something like that. That really gives you much greater flexibility. And so there's some plans that are out there that are available that take care of those things. This is an alternative for you as well. And this is why so many of us don't want our parents, or we don't want to go to a nursing home, not necessarily because we can't afford it, but because we just don't want to be in that environment. We kept my father at home as long as possible until we could no longer provide him the care that he needed around the clock. And then we found 2 very good facilities for him in the last 2 years of his life. Unfortunately, that's the exception to the rule. Unfortunately, almost 3/4 of people who are provided long-term care are done in a home by someone who has no compensation or who has no formal caregiving training. So when we talked about those of you who said, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, that's usually what happens when you get punched in the mouth. You sit around the table and say, who's going to take care of mom? Well, I have to quit my job if I take care of mom. I can't afford to take care of mom, because if I quit my job, I can't provide for my family, or my pension gets stunted and I have to then make that up somewhere later, something like that. So really it falls oftentimes on the women in the family, unfortunately, and that can impact earnings by over $300,000 in their lifetime, not to mention pension, things like that as well. So I want to have Lisa come on here, unmute herself, and kind of tell a little bit about her situation and kind of how you're dealing with this, Lisa, and what you've seen over the past 2 decades of your career in taking care of people in this situation?
Okay. Thanks, John. So I just want to start off to say that the reality is you don't know what you're going to do until it happens to you. I'll just start off with my mom. She's 77 and, excuse me, she has vascular dementia with psychosis. And she was born with a birth defect, we found out. At age 64, she had to have a heart transplant. Well, I'll just flash forward. She had a heart transplant with her coverage that she has now, which is a Medicare Advantage plan. You have a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. There was a lot of bills to pay. My dad died about 8 years ago. We found out mom, after a year after she sold the house, she moved into a condo. We saw that she wasn't able to cope for herself. She did not have a long-term care plan. She didn't have a home care plan. After many calls from the police department, because of her psychosis, we were told that we need to do something about it. And that got me looking for a home help or a nursing home. Well, we wanted to keep her at home as long as we could, and not having any plan. There was a lot of out-of-pocket expense with that. At the time, we had home helpers coming in and watching her, which was about $300 a week. Well, again, the reality set in to where she had to use her investments that dad had worked hard for and she had worked hard for. And I'm not trying to have anybody feel sorry for me or my sisters, but that's our legacy that they left for us, which we're giving to the nursing home. Which, by the way, because she's in a semi-private room, just so you know, price point in Columbia, a semi-private room for memory care is $268 a day. That's just for the room and the food that they give. Doesn't cost for her depends, medication, all that's on the side. Luckily, they have a doctor on staff. But anyway, we did find out that she has vascular dementia. She had to go see a neurologist. Just throwing this out there too, in any of you that have a Medicare Advantage plan or what have you, if you go to skilled nursing, which mom did, because she fell a couple times. Well, she's supposed to be in there for a good week. Well, after the therapies and everything that was going on, insurance company decided to say, oh, well, she looks like she's good to go back to the home. So they did. Well, when she could go, what happened was we had to pay. She did stay there for a week because we wanted her to, that we had to do private pay. So that's more money out of her investments that she had to pay. So, right now she's up in memory care. There's a lot of outside costs that nobody thinks about. Oh, just had to pay for a nursing home. It goes further than that. You still have to have money to get better, doctors, medications, and stuff that's still pay for your insurance, ongoing insurance. And anyway, right now mom is on, we got hospice in, and we had to sign a DNR, which we did, because she's 77 pounds, she's losing weight. There's one more thing I had to tell you. In between all this, we had to get a guardianship because mom did not have a will. She did not have a plan in place. We had to go to court. Well, there's your legal fees right there. It's $2,500. Again, out of her investments. So the whole story is, if you can get something in place and not think about, one of the choices is, do I want to go on Medicaid? You really don't. They're going to spin you down to, maybe $2,000 a month. You don't want that for your children or your grandchildren. So this is a good thing that John and the MRTA is putting out here for you. Don't do this route. I'll just say that.
Thank you, Lisa. I
Uh-huh.
hate to hear that story, but again,
Yep.
we have this conversation because it's not just us as individuals that are taken care of. It impacts generations. And because it impacts generations, you have control, and MRTA and AMBA want you to have peace of mind in how you take control of your situation. And you could tell the strain in Lisa's voice. My brother and I, my stepmother, we had similar concerns. The strain that care puts on the caregiver, whether it be the family member who's having to take care of it, or financially or physically, is significant. Many church groups, things like that, are now finding that they have to have caregiver support groups, because not only is the financial aspect impactful, the emotional aspect is impactful as well. So this is the opportunity for you to be able to take care of those situations for you. But we have a lot of folks that say, well, I'm too old. Here's the good news. There are plans available to you up to age 89. It may not be a full-blown long-term care plan like my father had, but it may be something like my mother has, that we can just take care of her for the first year and get her financial affairs in order. It allows you to buy some time. Some people say, well, I've got health issues. There are some plans that have less restrictive qualifications. The older we get, the more difficult it is to qualify, but some of these plans, because they know they're just paying for a certain period of time or for certain type of benefits, they're less restrictive on the qualification. So I encourage you to do that. And then there may be some of you that say, I have a long-term care policy, but my premiums keep climbing. What should I do? And we are recording this, and I will go on record here and say this: do not cancel your plan. You may have other options. There are so many different things that you have built in your policies, and I really want to applaud the departments of insurance across the country, because they have required companies to put in provisions in their plans that may give you some benefits even if you stop paying on your policy. But again, don't do that. Let someone review it. We're going to show you how you can do that. We're going to show you how you can take care of those reviews and make sure that you've got other options out there. So, all right. Someone asked about, I haven't heard any information on available policies. Okay. This educational webinar is a great question. The educational webinar is not to really discuss the specific type of policies that are available to you. I'm going to show you in a moment how you can find out more information on that. We're just trying to educate you on the issues and what your options could be. So, but I do thank you for that question that came in that way as well. We've talked about long-term issues. We haven't really touched on short-term issues, such as a knee replacement or hip replacement. Sometimes it can be up to 3 months to recover there. There are certain plans that are available to you that would give you up to $15,000 just to defray those expenses of in-home physical therapy, things like that. 3 times a week, nurse come out to do some physical therapy, because Medicare does a lot of things that really shorten your time frame that you get coverage from Medicare or a Medicare Advantage plan. So when it comes down to needing extended care, people pay out of their personal assets, unfortunately, or they seek assistance from family and friends. We saw that. Some talk about entering the Medicaid program, or some have extended care coverage. And we've talked about that. There are about 4 or 5 different options that you can have. If you want more information on the options, again, not every policy is available, or every plan is available for everyone, depending upon your age, your health condition, but there are a lot of options out there. Take your smartphone, open up your camera feature, and hover over that QR code. I'm going to show this at the end of the presentation as well, so have your smartphone ready. A little form will pop up, and you can just ask for a benefit review, or you can actually ask for long-term care or short-term care, something like that, because there are several different options out there for you. Some of them are very minimal expense-wise. Some will get more expensive the broader the coverage. But again, to make sure that we don't talk about products here, because not every product is eligible for everyone, we're just talking about the issues and how it could impact you as well. Now, Lisa mentioned Medicaid. Medicaid is extremely difficult to qualify for. I noticed on our panel, our poll, no one wanted to go the Medicaid route. And I will tell you, it's not, excuse me, it's not easy to qualify for Medicaid, because you have to spend down your assets. Sometimes there's a 5-year look back period. And I will tell you, for retired educators in the state of Missouri, usually your pension plan does not qualify you for Medicaid, because you've got a steady source of income. Sometimes they'll require you to put it into a Miller's trust. It basically says, I assign everything, including my pension, over to the state. And it says the state of Texas, but it also does it in Missouri. They'll recoup those expenses after someone passes away. So Medicaid is not really a route to go. I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. Took his class in church here a few years ago, and he talks about, well, I'll just pay for it out of my own pocket. And he says, if you've got a net worth of $4 million or more, then you can afford self-insurance for your long-term care needs. But Dave's a big proponent of long-term care because it allows you to have control over how you live. And that's really what we want to do. You've worked all your career. You've served the students in Missouri, and we appreciate that. Why would you want someone else to determine how you live your retirement years? A good long-term care plan, as we've shown, can keep you in your home longer, no matter what type of plan you have. It doesn't put the burden on your family and friends to either stop their job or pay out of their pocket to take care of you. And it allows you to go into your years with a plan. I am so appreciative my father had a plan before it was too late. He ran track collegiately, most athletic individual I ever knew, played basketball competitively up until his early 60s when he had a small stroke. He purchased a long-term care plan right about the time he was 60. Had he waited a year, he wouldn't have been eligible. So I highly encourage you to take care and take control of your plan, your goal that way. Now, I've shown you alternative concepts, and I'm going to show you again how to get that QR code to find out what those specific concepts could be. There are a few different ways that are unique out there that allow you to do some things differently that could cover your long-term care needs that you may not have realized you have opportunity for. One is through life insurance. If you have a life insurance policy that was probably that you personally own, that was outside of your school life insurance, something like that, some policy that you personally own, there's a provision in there that possibly gives you the ability to take some of that face amount and use it for long-term care situations. Give you an example. Say you have a $200,000 policy. It may say inside there that you have the ability to take $100,000 of that while you're living and use it for long-term care if you've been diagnosed with a chronic long-term care need. Usually it restricts you to staying in a nursing home. It doesn't give you home coverage, but that's a way that you can get that. And then when you pass away, the remaining portion of that life insurance policy is paid to your beneficiaries. Could be an option. Usually it's free in a policy. Let someone on Kel's team review that for you. Could be an option for you there. The other is an MRTA endorsed tax deferred asset protection plan that allows you to take some money that you may have in an IRA, in a CD, maybe in an old money market account, or maybe in an old 403B, that allows you to put it into this plan that you can grow money as the stock market grows, but you don't lose money, but you can use it for your long-term care without penalty. Or if you're receiving your benefits and you have to go into long-term care need, it can double your payments. This is the type of plan that I have with my father's history of dementia, my mother's history of dementia as well. It's difficult for me to qualify for a long-term care plan. So I was able to take advantage of this because there's no underwriting requirements in there. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Both of those are strategies. If you either already have a long-term care plan, you don't think you can afford one, or may have a policy that you don't think you could use. Other ways that you can do this, if you have some sort of required minimum distributions that are being required to take off of your savings plans, the older you get, now it's in your 70s, and you don't need that money, you can use that money for a long-term care plan, sometimes save you some taxes out there. If you have any type of earned income, you can set up a health savings account that you can use to pay for a long-term care plan and save taxes on the front end and on the back end, and have a way to get a discount on that. And in some ways, we've seen people get creative, is you may take out a lump sum, large cancer, heart attack, and stroke policy. And if you have one of those three medical conditions, it would pay you a large lump sum, $50,000, $25,000 that you could use for your care as well. So there are some ways that you can do that. This is that MRTA endorsed tax deferred asset protection plan that I spoke about. Again, there's no underwriting. So if you've got health conditions, it does not matter, but it allows you to grow your money or participate in the market with no loss of downside risk. You get gains on the upside. But the thing I like about it is the long-term care benefits that are built inside of it. And so I encourage you, if that's something that you'd like to find out about, you can get information on that. I'm going to show you those in a moment, show you how to get that. Want to remind you as we wrap up here, if you've got any questions, drop them into Q&A. Don't forget, you have a tremendous discount program that's out there that is available to you free as an MRTA member. Mother's Day is coming up. You can get flowers and all that kind of stuff at 15% off if you're looking to travel. Right now, Great Wolf Lodges all across the country are offering monster discounts. It is graduation season coming up. If you're looking at buying some gifts for your grandkids or your kids for graduation, great savings on all sort of technology discounts and travel, things like that. So always want to make sure you take advantage of your free discounts out there. We have more webinars coming up talking about Medicare next month, how to protect your nest egg that you've worked all your life for. We're going to talk about emergency transportation issues in Missouri. Whenever my son was in Columbia, we'd fly into Kansas City and drive across all the fields out there headed to Columbia, and there were helipads about every 50 miles or so. We're going to talk about what that costs and what you can do to fix that and remedy that out there as well. But please, please, please tell your friends, tell people who may not be members of MRTA about these webinar series. Help them understand what MRTA does on their behalf and why they should become a member. So I'm going to open this up to questions right now. And Lisa, I'm going to want you to unmute, and I'm going to ask you a question here in a moment. If you've got questions, drop them into Q&A. We can address those that way. If you want to find out about the plans, about the products, again, this is not a product webinar. We're not trying to talk about different plans. If you want to find out about those plans, simply take your smartphone, open up your smartphone's camera, hover over that QR code. It's going to pop up a little form. You can select benefit review, long-term care, whatever the topic is, fill that out. It comes back to me. I get it to Lisa or to Kel, someone in Missouri, to contact you. If you're on your smartphone or you're on an iPad and you don't have access to your camera feature, simply email me, john.green@amba.info. Now, Lisa, if someone says, I want to know about what's available out there, how do you contact them? What's the process that you review, that type of thing?
I contact them by phone, and then we set up a benefit review, mainly to go over the options. It takes about 15-20 minutes, and I'll do that. I'll do that either by phone or in Zoom, or preferably be in person if we can, if it works for them.
Okay. Now, what kind of questions do you get asked when it comes to long-term care, recovery care, that type of thing? What are some of the most common questions you get?
Oh, common ones, I guess, would be how much is it? I mean, that's the bottom line, you know.
Right.
Well, we don't know that until we ask you some qualifying questions, and then also to see what your need is. I mean, I've come across some people that have, well, I've had a long-term care plan for 20 years. I don't even know if I'm going to use it. And one of the things that you had mentioned, John, earlier, is that there are certain options in that plan that you can find in the policy to where possibly you can, you know, work in a gap filler with what we offer with the short-term care. So anyway, we review and we go over what you have or if you don't have, and see what your need is.
Okay, great. I can't stress that review enough, because that is, many of you have taken out a policy in the past, or you may have something collecting dust in a drawer that has some robust benefits in there. MRTA is committed to make sure you're living your retirement years the fullest that you can. And we want to make sure that you understand those. I've talked with several MRTA members that have told me, I didn't realize I had this benefit in my current plan. I think I'm good. Or I needed to review this and I didn't realize it was going to cost me $30,000 out of my pocket to get care to start with. What do I do? That type of thing. So please, please, please use that QR code. Email me. We will have someone, if it's not Lisa, depending on your geography, contact you, take care of you for any questions that you've got. So
Can I add one more thing? I'm sorry,
Sure.
John. Okay, one thing on the home care, I meant to mention that when my mom was going through her, you know, calling and not being able to cope at home by herself, I took on part of my day to watch her and take care of her. That is so draining on a family member. It takes a lot of, you know, your time, and you don't know how to do it. So, you know, you have access to home care, and definitely, you know, take advantage of that.
Exactly.
The home care plans. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. And Lisa brings up a great point. It's not always financial. Yes, we want to have those expenses covered, but because it can impact family members, it can be a emotional drain on family members. This is kind of why we have this conversation, to make sure that you know you have options out there and that there's somebody that you can trust that's endorsed by MRTA to help you understand what's available to you. So thank you for joining us today. Lisa and I are going to hang on. I'm going to stop recording now.